Okay, so you know how it is these days, right? Just drowning in information.
Oh, absolutely. Information overload is real.
Yeah, so we try to cut through that a bit. And today, we're looking at something really specific, something that just flipped on a dime. The India-Pakistan ceasefire on May 10th, 2025.
It really did flip. You had this announcement, this glimmer of hope.
Like a shiny new peace deal, right?
Right.
And then, bam, almost immediately, it felt like border drama as usual.
Exactly. Hours. It wasn't even days. It was just hours between the announcement and the violation.
So to unpack this, we've looked at a whole bunch of stuff, reports from the ground, official statements, even the social media chatter as it happened on May 10th.
Trying to piece together what actually occurred on that specific day.
Right. Our mission, if you will, for this deep dive is to figure out what went down, why it happened so fast, and, what it means.
Let's start with the good news first, I suppose. The ceasefire itself.
Yeah, the brief moment of optimism. Earlier that day, May 10th, things seemed positive.
That's right. Around 6 p.m. India time, the Foreign Secretary, Vikram Misri, actually held a press briefing.
And he confirmed it.
He did. Confirmed a full and immediate ceasefire along the line of control. That's the de facto border in Kashmir.
And this wasn't completely out of the blue, was it? Because earlier...
No, exactly. A few hours before that, around 3:35 p.m., 3:45 p.m. IST, the DGMOs, the Directors General of Military Operations, had spoken.
On the hotline. That's usually a pretty serious sign, right?
Yeah.
High-level military contact.
Signals intent, yeah. Usually means they're trying to de-escalate things properly.
And then there was that other element, the Trump tweet.
Yes. The social media claim of mediation added a bit of, let's say, international flavor, or maybe just noise.
Right. Though India was quick to say it was bilateral, a mutual thing.
They were. Emphasized it was between India and Pakistan directly, but still, that claim definitely got attention.
But the key words were full and immediate. That sounded so definitive, no conditions attached.
That was the hope. But it was daylight when they agreed, and nighttime when it, well, fell apart.
Such a short lifespan for peace. So where did things break down first? Where did the shelling start?
Reports started coming in from multiple locations along the low sea that night. Srinagar, RS Pura, Akhnoor,
Okay.
also Cham and Bimber further south. It wasn't just one spot.
And you saw the reaction online pretty quickly, didn't you? I remember seeing the J&K Chief Minister Omar Abdullah post on X.
Yes, his reaction really captured that feeling of, here we go again, that frustration and disappointment.
Understandable. And then the news outlets picked it up.
Right. Deccan Chronicle, India Today, others started reporting details, artillery fire, but also significantly drone activity.
Okay, drones. We'll need to circle back to that. But first, maybe we should zoom out. This didn't happen in isolation, right? The low sea. It's got a long history.
A very long and very troubled history. It basically dates back to the 1947 partition and the first war over Kashmir.
It's about 740 kilometers long.
Roughly, yeah. And that's just the Low Sea. The whole frontier, including the international border and the AGPL up near Siachen, is much longer, over 3,300 kilometers. Volatile is an understatement.
So what ramped things up this time leading into May? Was it that awful attack in Pahalgam?
That seems to be the immediate catalyst, yes. The attack on April 22nd, 2025, where 26 tourists were killed. A truly horrific event.
And India immediately blamed Pakistan.
They did. Publicly accused them of having links to it. Pakistan, predictably, issued strong denials.
But regardless of the proof, that attack definitely shifted the mood, hardened stances.
Absolutely. And almost right after, from about April 24th onwards, we started seeing reports of increased firing from the Pakistani side.
Nightly firing mostly, small arms, artillery.
Primarily nightly, yes, using small arms, mortars, sometimes artillery. And India was returning fire.
And then it escalated further, didn't it? Hitting the international border.
Correct. On April 30th, they targeted the IB in the Paragwal sector near Jammu. That was significant because the IB is usually, relatively speaking, a bit quieter than the Low Sea.
Felt like India decided to respond more broadly this time, not just militarily.
They definitely pulled some big levers in response to Pahalgam. Suspending the Indus Waters Treaty, that's huge.
Massive implications for water sharing. What else?
They closed the Atari border crossing, expelled Pakistani military attaches, banned Pakistani airlines from Indian airspace. A pretty comprehensive package of measures.
A strong signal. And Pakistan's reaction.
Pretty standard tit for tat, you could say. Closed their airspace to Indian flights, suspended trade, made noises about the water treaty.
Yeah, threatening action over water rights. Classic escalation cycle.
Exactly. So the week leading up to May 10th was already tense. Indian officials were reporting fire almost every night.
7 nights straight, I think, in places like Kupwara, Uri, Poonch, Akhnoor.
That's what was reported, yes.
Yeah.
And the DGMO hotline was apparently busy, with India lodging protests and warnings.
So it's against that backdrop, high-tension, nightly firing, diplomatic measures that this sudden ceasefire gets announced.
Which makes its collapse just hours later even more jarring.
Okay, let's get back to that night then. May 10th. The ceasefire is announced, then broken. You mentioned drones earlier.
Yes, that was a key part of what happened. Indian air defenses detected and reportedly intercepted Pakistani drones
Where was this?
over Srinagar and also near the Nagrota military base, not just one isolated incident.
And these weren't hobby drones, presumably.
The assessment was military grade, which raises immediate questions, reconnaissance, something else, especially right after a ceasefire.
Definitely suspicious. And people saw this happening.
There were reports of explosions in Srinagar. Social media lit up with talk of anti-aircraft fire, maybe some shaky videos. It caused alarm.
While that's happening in the air, what about the ground?
The shelling really kicked off again. Akhnoor, Rajouri, RS Pura, Bimber all reported heavy fire.
So widespread.
Yes, and Cham sector too. The Deccan Chronicle and India Today specifically mentioned the Palanwala sector breach. It wasn't minor.
And the Indian Army's response.
They responded. Reports indicated return fire using small arms and artillery. Standard operating procedure when fired upon.
Any casualties reported from that night's exchange?
Initial reports from the Indian side suggested no casualties resulted directly from that specific night's firing.
But there were other reports.
There were some unconfirmed reports in Pakistani media about 2 shepherds being killed in earlier clashes before the ceasefire announcement. Important to stress, unconfirmed there.
Right, got to be careful with information in that environment.
Absolutely. But verified or not, the sheer speed of the breakdown was the main takeaway. And again, Chief Minister Abdullah's reaction on X kind of summed up the frustration.
It just begs the question, why? Why is sustained peace so incredibly difficult here?
Well, the roots are so deep, aren't they? Back to 1947, partition, the unresolved status of Jammu and Kashmir, it's the core issue.
We've seen major wars, 47, 65, 99 in Kargil.
And countless smaller skirmishes, periods of intense firing like this one. The conflict is baked into the relationship, sadly.
And the Lhasa itself was never meant to be permanent, was it? Just a ceasefire line from 71.
Exactly. It's solidified into this de facto border, but both sides have fundamentally different claims over the territory. India controls J&K, Pakistan controls what it calls Azad Jammu and Kashmir.
And the accusations fly back and forth, constantly supporting militants, cross-border terrorism.
That mistrust is profound. It undermines everything, even when they agree on things like the 2003 ceasefire, which was reaffirmed in 2021.
Just doesn't seem to stick for long. There's always something.
And this time, as we said, the Pahalgam attack seemed to be that trigger, leading to India taking a perhaps tougher line overall. Suspending the water treaty is a big step.
Do you think Pakistan's actions, like the drone incursions, are about testing defenses? Or maybe for domestic audiences?
It could be a mix of things. Testing Indian resolve, checking air defense readiness, perhaps some internal signaling within Pakistan. It's complex, projecting strength.
And the big powers are watching, presumably. U.S., China.
Always. They have significant interests in regional stability. While India stressed this ceasefire was bilateral, any major flare-up draws international attention very quickly.
It's easy to get lost in the politics and military moves, but there's a huge human cost here.
Oh, immense. For the people living right near the lost sea, this isn't abstract. It's their homes, their farms, their lives.
I remember reading about the shelling back in 2017. In Nowshera sector, civilians killed, thousands displaced.
Exactly. That's the reality. Destroyed houses, ruined crops, kids unable to go to school, that constant fear.
And this recent flare-up since late April, it must have brought all that fear back to places like Kupwara and Poonch.
Undoubtedly. Even the progress made after the 2021 ceasefire, some increase in farming, a bit of tourism in areas like Gurez and Tangbar that's immediately threatened again.
It's fragile progress, easily wiped out.
Very fragile. And we shouldn't forget the soldiers on both sides either. They live with this danger constantly. Think of Hamildar Shamaji, killed in 2020. Every casualty is a tragedy.
So, looking forward from May 10th, what does this breakdown tell us? Where do things go?
Well, it starkly highlights the fragility, doesn't it? Any peace is conditional and easily broken. India's military is clearly on high alert.
And the DGMO hotline will likely stay active, trying to manage incidents.
Probably. That channel remains important for immediate deconfliction, even when things are bad. But India's public stance is firm. Unprovoked fire will be met with response.
So the risk of escalation is definitely there.
It is. But on the other hand, they did both agree to a ceasefire, even briefly. That means the potential for dialogue, for diplomatic off-ramps, isn't completely zero.
Maybe international pressure plays a role, too.
It can, behind the scenes perhaps, encouraging restraint. Ultimately, though, it requires Pakistan to ensure its forces adhere to agreements and India to calibrate its responses carefully.
A tough balance. And for the people on the border.
The outlook is grim if the firing continues. More disruption, possibly displacement, need for aid, long-term solutions, confidence building, cultural exchange. They feel very far off right now.
Yeah. So the big takeaway from May 10th, 2025 is really just how thin that veneer of peace is.
Extremely thin. Underneath, you have decades of mistrust, complex politics, security concerns. It's a potent mix.
It's not just a news headline, is it? These events have real deep impacts on people, on the whole region.
Absolutely. And it leaves you wondering, doesn't it? After all this time, all these cycles of conflict and fragile peace along a line drawn decades ago, what would it actually take to fundamentally change the equation, to build something truly stable and lasting?